All right, great. So let me open up. So what we're doing today is we're going to be going over the drones and how they can be integrated into the classroom environment and at what level we can code to them. I'm just going to start my video up. Let me change my video.
Nice hardwood floors.
Thank you. You should be able to see me now.
Yes.
Okay, great. So I have a couple just like sort of preliminary questions to get an understanding of how you'll be using the drones. That way I can address your needs as best as possible. So my first question is, are you going to be working with students who have coded before?
For the most part, they have not. There will be some that might have done some HTML, but that's the closest thing we have to any kind of programming class.
Okay, and no drag and drop or anything like that they've learned before?
I'm sure I've got some that have done it for fun.
Okay.
And I do have one student this year who did Lego Mindstorms with me last year.
All right.
So he'll have a bit of familiarity. He's told me he's taking this class. So.
Okay. And how about your educators? Is it just yourself that'll be teaching this?
I'm the only one.
Okay. And you, what sort of experience do you have with drag and drop coding, that sort of thing?
Well, Lego Mindstorms is the drag and drop coding I'm most used to. I actually did BASIC back when I was in a child with the IBM clone that the dad had, and I'd get the big blue magazine and try to program in, but but other than that, I haven't done a whole lot of it. Just a smidgen of JavaScript. There's a JavaScript language they've designed specifically for people to do quickie codes on line. I can't think of the name of the platform, but so that's it as far as my own programming.
Okay. So if you've done JavaScript before and drag and drop, I think you'd be very comfortable with this.
Mm-hmm.
And we've taught teachers who haven't had any coding experience before. They're just interested and they want to help the students out.
Mm-hmm.
So we're off to a good start. So what we use is a drone called Tello.
Mm-hmm.
Have you updated it before? Yeah.
Yeah, I've updated all 10 of the ones we got with the Tello software on my cell phone.
Okay, perfect. So you probably went through all this before, downloaded the Tello app, updated the drones themselves. So the reason that we always want to make sure they're updated is because when we purchase a drone, it might have been on the shelf in a warehouse for a couple of months. So the software that it was originally downloaded with could be old and even older than the drone itself. So if we update the firmware, we're going to be able to troubleshoot better. And that's like one of the biggest things that we're always teaching the students is troubleshooting if it's one of their first experiences with hardware. Mm-hmm. So what we're going to go over today includes a few exercises. We're going to work on connecting to the drone, do a simple takeoff and landing. When coding, one of the first things that we usually do is what we call a hello world. Mm-hmm. That is just giving some information to the drone and looking to see if we get something back, or giving some information to our software or hardware and see if we get something back. In this situation, we don't have a command line like interface. So instead, we're just doing a quick takeoff, spin around, and then do a landing. We will do a flying square, stages with a hexagon, and dynamic code with a polygon equation. And then we'll look at the EDU portal that you have access to, which is edu.droneblocks.io.
Yeah, I've done the first segment of the droneblocks.io.
Okay.
In anticipation of eventually teaching it.
Yeah. So what was the first segment? What did it end at?
I actually ended just with the landed in your hand after you do the flyby back and forth. A foot, 2 feet, 3 feet, 4 feet using their
So, I mean, we'll still work forwards through my stuff. It just means
Sure, that's fine.
we're going to move quicker if you which is great because one of the biggest things is like talking about how they can be used in the classroom and what your overall concepts are. The drones can be coded at a Python level, and we've just also implemented Node-RED, which is like drag and drop JavaScript.
Yeah, I was just seeing that. That's the first time I'd heard of it with the sales rep for this, and that was one thing I hadn't talked about. So I was kind of curious. How do you know if you've got a Tello or the Tello Edu?
The Tello EDU has like a black top to it that's got like sort of an electronic look.
Okay, so the white top one's a regular Tello.
If you have a solid color or white solid, it's regular Tello.
Okay, all right, that's the ones we have.
Yeah. So do you intend to have the students directly typing code into like a coding interface or a coding environment, or will you be working, at least for the first year, only in like drag and drop?
We'll start with the drone blocks, and then supposedly get into the Python. So that's the part I haven't started with yet. So I don't even know like what software it uses to type the Python stuff in. I haven't got that far yet.
Okay. Did you download the Anaconda?
Nope.
Okay. So that's the software that's used to. So Jupyter is like an online sort of notebook where it opens up a document for you and it interacts between the drone and your computer, and it uses something called the Anaconda. So it's Anaconda and Jupyter work hand in hand.
Cool.
And that's how the students would do it. The great thing about that, and what we aim to do for even in the drone blocks, is we like to, no matter the device that somebody's using, it's going to be level. It should be working based off a browser, and we usually use Google Chrome, so that everybody has the same environment, whether you're a Mac user, Windows user, Linux, Unix, all of that.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I was curious to see if this would work on our netbooks that I use in my classroom, and they do. They're not Chromebooks; they are Windows netbooks, but it worked. You know, I got the Chrome Drone Blocks Chrome extension installed just fine. So that was like, yeah, it's one less thing to worry about for next year.
And that should be the same case with the Python aspect as well.
Sweet. I was hoping that was going to be the case.
Okay, so what we're going to do is, so the reason we use the Tello drones themselves is because they're programmable. They have their own SDK or software development kit. So when we code to the drones, we're not telling it like rotate your right propeller, rotate your left propeller, your back right, back left. We're telling it take off, and it knows how much it's going to apply to each propeller. Mm-hmm. That's based off the SDK, the software development kit. So we can tell it like take off, land, forward, backward, right, left, turn left, all that stuff is because
and flip. That was the coolest thing, the flipping.
Yeah, and when we teach the drones, as kids always have the same reaction, is like they want to flip the drones. So the second thing we do after we get the drone up and down once is we have something with a flip implemented, mm-hmm. so that you're not like the policeman in the room saying no flipping. Instead, you're saying part of the lesson is flipping, and the students.
Yes.
The next thing is the 13-minute flight time with really fast charging. It takes about 45 minutes to charge a battery. So if you go with 3 batteries, a little bit of coding time built in as well, 3 batteries per drone, you should be good. It's really hard to have something like that. And then ability to code through apps, and specifically Google Chrome. This makes the, as I mentioned, the like even playing field for everybody. And it's got great safety features. So the drone, I'm not sure if you've accidentally flown it into anything yet.
A couple times.
So they're pretty hardy. So they don't break very easily. We actually have never had a drone break. We've had one decalibrate, but I'll talk about that once I'm done talking about the safety features. Mm-hmm. So if the first thing I want to talk about is the blades. If a student or anybody puts their finger into the blades, it shouldn't cut them. I've never had anybody cut their fingers on the blades. It will hurt, obviously, but again, it's not going to cause any serious harm. Eyes are another story, though. And the next thing is we've got the sensors on the bottom. So the drone, if it's getting some sort of headwind, we don't recommend using the drones outside, but let's say it's got an air conditioning unit that's blowing towards it. The drone should still fly the distance it's supposed to fly. Let's say we're going 20 inches. It measures 20 inches with the sensors. It doesn't just apply the force that'll get it to go 20 inches.
Okay.
So I guess the safety feature around that is that the drone should act as expected, not just sort of in a weird way. Also, if a student comes in from below, the sensors will understand something is coming towards it, and it'll fly out of the way, ensuring that it doesn't sort of bang into anything from that direction. The last thing is, I'm sure I'm probably skipping something, but the last thing I want to mention is that if the drone goes up all the way to the roof, it'll actually just sort of stick to the roof. It won't have any issues because of the way that the bumpers come up and the blades have these little knobs in the middle. So,
yeah, I see that.
And whenever it's doing something like that, it'll understand, okay, something's going wrong, we're going to land. And it's not just turn off, it's going to land. And that's the final sort of feature, is that the way the code is written for the drone is that if it's running into issues, it's going to land. If it's running low on battery, it's going to land. Its basic, like, default safety feature is, okay, I don't know what's going on, I'm going to land. Which reminded me of something, but I just forgot it. Okay.
Well, I like that you've got the abort option always up when your program is running too. That's a useful thing. Like, oops, that's going in the wrong spot. Let's abort this. Yeah.
So we always want to tell our students, if always conceptualize what the code is going to do, and if your drone is doing something completely different, click abort. Check your code and check your conceptualization, right? Because the drones can get dangerous when they're not doing what we expect. Which leads me to the battery. If the battery is below, like, around 35% nowadays, it keeps changing based on the software and what number they choose. But if the battery is around 35%, it'll stop doing certain things. So the first piece that we'll see the drone skip is flipping, because flipping takes a lot of battery, and the drone doesn't want to get caught mid-flip and then just die and fall out of the air. It instead is going to say, okay, we're going to skip the flips, or we're just going to abort if we think we're using too much power, which is another great safety feature, and we just rotate the battery. Okay, so you've downloaded Drone Blocks already?
Yes, I've got that on this one. I probably should put it on the other one in case. I brought two home. Okay.
So, oh yeah, you're going to want to use your extra computer to code to the drone.
Yep, that's what I figured, because I'd have to turn off the Wi-Fi in order to do that. So I brought a second netbook.
So in Google Chrome, we've got the apps button. Some computers I've seen recently actually don't have the apps button showing up. So we can go to Chrome://apps. But also, if it's not showing up, it just means our bookmarks bar is not here. So you can add that to your browser by right-clicking and adding bookmarks. The next piece that we have is the Drone Blocks app right here. So we click on that. And now we get usually a blank interface, but I was just coding to the drone earlier. So we've got this. What I want to make sure I'm doing is closing any extra Drone Blocks applications that we have, because sometimes it can interfere with the drone itself. The next thing we're going to do is so I'm going to delete all this, and you've done this before, but I'll walk through it quickly with you again. So we're going to take off, we're going to do navigation, and we're going to come down to your right, and we're going to change it to 360 degrees. I'll talk about why we call it yaw in a second, and then we're going to add land. So it's called yaw because that's what it's called in aviation terms. As a person, we might call it turn, right? Because we would just turn on our feet. But since a drone is floating in the air, turning could be like this, or like this. So to yaw means to rotate about the z-axis. So the drone will rotate 360 degrees like this. I find that students understand the X, Y, and Z plane much more readily than we do, just because of what they do on computers and what games they play nowadays, versus what we were doing back when we were in classrooms. So for us, we used to have a flat piece of paper, and it was on the desk, and many of us believed X to be left and right and Y to be up and down. But the case for most things is that so the X and Y is a flat plane like this, and then the Z comes up and down like this. We'll get into the X, Y, and Z rule a little bit later on, but we'll work on connection for now. So since you've done this before, we'll breeze through it. We turn on the drone by pressing the button. It starts flashing a whole bunch of different colors, I think either twice or 3 times. And then it should start flashing yellow like that. Sometimes the drone does not flash yellow. It can flash red, it can flash green.
You still there? Uh-oh.
I'm gonna try and get our drone. Oh. Trina, are you able to hear me still?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, great. So I made a bit of a mistake before I power on the drone. What I really like to do is just click on this, because then we're just reading the instructions that come up here. So we click here, we power on the telo. Now we're going to go to our computer's network settings, and I have like an internet splitter, so I have to select like the secondary internet.
Aha.
And so for everybody else, it'll just be you come here and then you choose the drone. But now I'm going to do that. So I click here and I click connect, and my drone should start flashing. Sorry, it's going to come across to the dots for a little bit. It's going to look for a real connection, but it usually won't ever receive that, because the drone doesn't provide internet.
Right.
It just is a connection. So once it's gone a few times, we'll click back in the app and we'll click connect. And this is when the drone should start flashing green, and mine is doing that. So I'll click, and then you'll see the battery pop up in the top left. That's like the first indication that we're connected. And then we click the lines and we click launch mission. So my drone should take off, and they usually take off to about 30 to 35 inches. But each drone may have its own takeoff height, and then it's going to rotate, and then it's going to land back down. So since you've already started looking at the edu.drone blocks, the online stuff, the first thing that I like to teach the students after this is actually land in your hand.
Oh, okay.
It's super helpful in ensuring that, like specifically in a classroom setting, like let's say you're not in a gym or something completely empty. The drone may be trying to land on the edge of a table, landing on chairs, landing on top of computer screens. So if we can just stick our hand out and prevent the drone from doing that, you know, once before we start doing complicated missions,
okay, that makes sense.
We're not going to break the drone's computers, other things like that. So you can go ahead and launch your code if you'd like, or we can just move forwards, as I believe you've probably done it before, right?
Yeah, I can go forward. Let me get my battery out though, so I'll be ready.
Okay. So as you may have learned previously, the drone name is inside the drone.
Oh, now that I didn't get.
Oh, okay. So when you're running 10 drones, right?
Yes.
When you come down to your Wi-Fi, you're not going to see just one, like, you get...
Yeah. Well, see, I went through, turned them all on, read them, and then made labels for them.
Yeah.
So they have a big label on it that says which Wi-Fi it is.
Have you done that already?
Yeah.
Oh, perfect.
I'm anal retentive, man. I didn't realize that there was an actual label on it that had the thing.
Well, it's once you have the battery in, it's hidden.
Yeah.
So you definitely need the labels on the drones.
Yeah.
So that's a good one.
Because I was thinking, man, I'm going to have, we probably won't have all 10 because I don't think I'm getting 10 kids signing up for it, but I can still picture 6 or 7 of these guys and kids. Wait, which one, which of these signals is mine?
Mine, yeah. And that's another safety issue. Like right now, I'm leaning right over my drone, and if someone connected to it and launched it, I would not be very happy.
Yes.
But honestly, having 6 or 7 drones for the 10 students is probably really good. Just in terms of troubleshooting and stuff like that. Like if a drone's not working, you can use another one just to check that it's not the drone itself, or if it is the drone itself that's having issues. And then we've got our connection stuff that we just did over here. Yep, so the students are going to have issues connecting to the drone. They might, like, as you move forwards and do like the first 3 activities, they'll say it's not, they'll say it's not working. You come over and you just walk through the connection again with them, and usually it just happens to be that they haven't reconnected to their drone properly. Something I want to point out is after about 9 minutes or so, the drone will turn off. And let's say I'm just going to turn it off right now, right? It doesn't indicate that my drone is off anywhere in our interface. But what we do is we still follow the same steps. We click this word that's up here, like tello, and then it's going to come up with the instructions, and we just follow these instructions to reconnect back to the drone. If we just tell the students, like, is your drone on? If the answer is yes, run through the connection steps. If the answer is no, turn on your drone, then run through the connection steps. That'll address your troubleshooting, most of your troubleshooting for like the first 2 or 3 days that you're working with the students, assuming that you're working with them for like 40 minutes.
That's that's about it.
Yeah. So yeah, it's engaging our students. We can teach them to a much higher level of specifically math right now with the drones. So I've taught like 10-year-olds basic trigonometry using the sine wave function. And although they don't, they wouldn't be able to go in and calculate all the sides of a triangle and stuff like that using trigonomic equations, they now have an understanding of what a sine wave is. They understand that if you put numbers into the sine wave function, it's going to give you something between the values of 1 and -1. So just a real basic view, a real basic understanding of trig, and it's applicable knowledge, not just theoretical. Well, not really theoretical from the way we teach the drones. The next piece we go to is the square, or a box. When I teach the students, when I have them flying a box, I'll tell them, okay, fly a box. It doesn't matter what your code looks like. All I want you to do is get the drone to fly a box. The point of this is that there are many different ways of coding. It's very similar to math. Like it's very similar to math in saying that there are many ways to reach the final number or solution, but we don't necessarily want to teach the students. We don't want to force them in one direction specifically.
Right.
So here we've got, we take off, we fly forwards, we fly right, we fly backwards, and we fly left. In the second one, we take off, we fly forwards, we turn right, we fly forwards, we turn right, we fly forwards, we turn right, we fly forwards, and we would finish by turning right again. So do you see an application for each one of these instances, since you've done a little coding before?
Yeah, if, thinking in terms of as a pilot type of person, even, in one case you can see where you're going, in others you can be focusing on something in the forward direction.
Yes.
I don't know how much, if any, camera work you can do, it might depend.
That's perfect. So each of these solutions could be good for a different real world scenario. And each of their code is actually used. So assuming you just need the drone to fly a box, their code is actually good in different ways. So this one, well, I may as well. So this one right here, written without a loop, it looks like this, and it's actually not a good solution. But once we put a loop around it, we now have less margin for error when we're writing the code, and it's more legible and readable for a human, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas this one is very direct and efficient for the drone itself. So if we walk through the steps here, so let's talk about the way the drone works first of all. So when it takes off, it reaches its final, it comes up and it reaches its top point, and it might be wobbling, and it'll stabilize. Once it's stabilized, it sends back a communication of okay towards the computer. I'm ready for the next step. The computer sends the next step, which is fly forwards, and the drone will fly forwards, and then it'll stabilize again before it says, okay, I'm ready for the next step.
Okay, that explains the little pause that it'll sometimes have.
Yeah. So, and why it can be so quick sometimes and a little slower other times.
Yeah, that's good to know.
So if we think about the way the code is executing, is it takes off. So if we're gonna count this, so it's gonna take off, it's gonna stabilize, it's gonna fly forwards, it's gonna stabilize, it's gonna fly right, it's gonna stabilize, it's gonna fly backwards, it's gonna stabilize, it's gonna fly left, and it's gonna stabilize. So 10 steps there. Mm-hmm. And here we've got take off, stabilize, fly forwards, stabilize, turn right, stabilize, fly forwards, stabilize. So we just reached here. Turn right, stabilize. We've already reached 10. We haven't even completed half of the square yet.
Right.
So although this code can be much more complex, yet have less margin for error. So from the human side, this is better. From the actual computer side, this is better code. Mm-hmm. And one of the students that I actually was just working with, he wrote some pretty complex code using trigonometry to have the drone fly in this pattern while still always looking in the forward direction. So every time he reached the corner, he had to pretty much imagine like a triangle here, and then calculate the leg, and then fly like with the drone facing forward. So that was pretty cool to see a student take that initiative. So have you flown the box in your practice so far?
Yeah. I did the box. I did the hexagon too. I liked the point that the video talked about. You calculate the internal angle, but you use the external angle kind of stuff.
Yes. And I love to tell the students that dozens of times before we get to the polygon equation, and they will still make the same mistake. So the reason I'm skipping stuff is because I want to make sure that I have time to explain the Python stuff well for you. Actually, since you don't have Anaconda downloaded, let's get that downloading while we're
okay.
Stuff. So if you look up Anaconda Navigator, let's put download afterwards as well. So you want to do this on the other computer.
Yeah, I got it.
And then we click on the first link, I believe. Nope. So let me I've clicked on this one before apparently. Okay. So the second one, actually, yeah. So the second one is a link anaconda.com/distribution.
Yeah, I see it.
And now we've got download. I'm going to click the one on the top right.
All right, 2.7 or 3.7?
So the first thing we want to do is make sure that we're on Windows, if that's what you're using.
Oh yeah, I am on Mac. There we go. I'm Windows.
And then we're going to use, let me just see for a second. It's odd. Usually there's a description here. So let's go with 3.7. Usually the description, there's two files. There's two versions, and the reason for the two versions is one of them is like, here's our newest features, but there may be bugs. And the other, like, this is completely bug-free, but you don't have like the most up-to-date stuff. But they're pretty good, so I would just go with the most up-to-date one. I guess I can click it as well, but I'm not gonna click the final. Okay, so it'll give you the file, and then I would just click on it so that it'll open up once it's done.
Okay, I'm going to find out if they'll be able to install this or not, because I don't have a administrative password. So the good news is the Zoom and the other stuff I didn't need it for. If I do, I'll get it on my personal laptop.
Yeah. So okay.
Right,
I'll just keep moving forwards then, right? Okay. So we're going to skip the hexagon one as well, but as you mentioned, we're going to keep telling them that the students that we're going to be turning the exterior angle, whereas like most of the time you think about shapes with these interior angles. So the next piece after that is the dynamic code and flying a polygon shape. Dynamic code is code that can be reused and repurposed depending on well, what it is that you've written. But the point is that it makes your life easier going forwards. So although we could tell the drone to take off, and let's say we wanted this to fly a hexagon, we would just change the number 8 here, and then we're also going to change the degrees to, I believe, 45 degrees.
Yeah, I think that was it.
And then it'll fly a hexagon. But the complexity in that is that you have to calculate each time with the degrees that you would like the drone to be turning. So instead what we do is we integrate our flight plan with a little bit of math, and then it'll, just by changing like the first number from like 8 to 7 to 6 to 5, we'll go from hexagon, octagon, septagon, hexagon, pentagon, and so forth.
Yeah, that's cool, because this bit actually was not part of the lesson.
So I think
in the Dron box.
It online, if you kept going forwards, you would have reached this, I believe.
Pardon?
So what we can do right now is I would like you to assemble this, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. One thing I would like to point out, so familiarity with the Dron blocks environment itself is important for both the teacher and the student. But let's say we're going to do the variables. We click in the variables area, and then we click create variable. I'm going to go right for the interior angle one here. And the reason that I'm naming my variables the way I do is because it's good practice. Although Dron blocks will understand a space here, once you get into a real coding environment, that will mess with your variable naming. And also the same thing with files. If you put a space in files, if you're trying to navigate through like terminal or something like that, or a command prompt, the computer may not be able to understand what's going on. So that's why I immediately have my students learning either this is called snake case and this is called camel case, and they're the two most widely used variable and file naming formats.
What were those two terms?
Snake case So this one's like going up and down. I mean, they're both going up and down. This is called snake case and camel case because every time you have a new word, you do a capital letter.
Okay.
So I click OK. And now we have our variables in here. And let's go with set. Put it in here. And now to get this whole piece right here, it's a little bit of PEMDAS. So the best way of going about it is taking this piece and dragging it out 3 times. So once, the second one goes in the left, that's twice, and the third one also goes in the left. And then from here, it's pretty simple to replicate our code. So we put our number of sides in here, -2.
You nested it 3 times.
Exactly, yeah. And there are parts to recognize for the students here, like since we've been doing the square and they would have done the hexagon as well, what they can see is that we're taking off, we're doing some mathematical calculations and setting variables, and then we're literally just running like the same code to fly a shape, just with more dynamic numbers.
Okay, and then that's just the variable. So you multiply it by 2.
So number
No,
seven,
-2.
-2. Multiplied by 180, divided by the number of sides, which is another variable that we have to create.
Make this window bigger.
Yeah, you can. And there's also the zoom in and zoom out over here in the bottom right.
These are nice little netbooks, but little is a good word for them.
Yeah.
I admire my students and they're being able to see all this stuff.
Yeah, I do like teaching window management to students, but once the screen gets so small, you reach a point where it's not viable anymore. You just have to teach them about maybe hotkeying between 2 windows or something like that.
And it doesn't help that I'm old and it's harder to see stuff.
Well, that's
okay. What's the that's number again? It's number of sides again at the end.
Yep.
After the divide.
Number of sides over here. Yep.
Yeah.
That's what phones are good for, though, right? You can take a photo of anything and zoom in all the way.
I don't know how people. I don't know how we got away. How we got around no phones back in growing up days.
My grandfather still carries around a magnifying glass with a light on it. So something that we teach our students, that we don't even have to teach them, something they'll learn with the drones is spatial awareness. They'll learn how big, like 20 inches is, how big 30, 40, 50 inches is, and the same thing with centimeters if we wanted to teach them that. Something we have in our code right here is 100 inches, right? So you may want to reduce that down to, I would say 20 or 15. And while I'm talking about reducing the numbers, the drone has a minimum it can fly, both in 3 scenarios, in centimeters, inches, and in the curve wave. So in centimeters, it's 20. In inches, it's 10. And in the curve wave, it's like about 25. And the reason for that is because the drone has issues flying such small distances. And you'll notice if you fly a shape that's only 10 inches or 20 centimeters, you will barely be able to discern like what shape it is that the drone is flying. So I rarely like to have the students go below the number 15 inches, because that is really the point at which you can understand what the drone is actually doing.
Makes sense.
So for this line, just make sure, unless you're in quite a large open space, you may want to reduce it down.
I am not in a large open space. I thought about working at the school and using the gym, and I was like, nah, I want to be home.
Yeah, it's working from home is nice.
Especially in the summer.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I like that.
Do your students have
this is really neat code. I mean, just in terms of writing, learning how to write efficient code that you don't have to keep, making stuff on.
Yes.
I like that.
Yeah. And it also it ties in math into like a real world scenario right on the spot too. So you won't really have to address that question that I remember asking 1,000 times as a student, which was, why do we need to know this?
Mm-hmm.
It's just so apparent once the drone is doing it. So once you're done,
Almost.
go through the connection steps and then feel free to launch.
All right. All right. Excited figure. Time to scare the cats.
And just like distance, not at 100.
One of my cats was watching while I was controlling it with the cell phone. He was just watching. He's like, I don't know what it is. I'm just going to keep my eye on it here. All right. Getting used to the turning off changing the Wi-Fi connection and changing, that part was a little odd at first, but I think I've got the hang of it. Come on, guy.
Yeah, but the reason that it is like that is for connection strength and keeping the price of the drone down itself.
Yes.
So students have the same reaction. So is it not showing up in the Wi-Fi?
At the moment, no. But even my Wi-Fi isn't showing up on the Wi-Fi right now. So
maybe just click out of the Wi-Fi and click back into it. Sometimes it doesn't update that quickly.
Come on, maybe. There we go. Here's a whole bunch. Okay, it's just being stupid. This one, this is computer number 21. It doesn't get used very much, so I think it just doesn't know what to do.
It's feeling rusty.
Yes. There we go. Okay, so connect to Tello. Connect. Yay, we got green. Oh. All right, Lance, you ready to be scared? Oh, we'll see if I have a big enough space here. Now I do wonder. I've been doing a sign on with drone blocks. Hey.
Oh, the login? Yeah, I can walk you through that.
There he goes. Okay, let's abort this guy because my house just isn't big enough.
Yeah, and then what I would have you do, if you would like, is change the number up here to 3, and it'll fly a triangle instead of
right.
And as far as the another piece that can be brought into this is calculating the diameter of a shape. So if a drone is flying a square, right, it's only going to make a total forward direction of whatever the leg length is.
Mm-hmm.
If we now have an octagon, it's going to fly like out here and then up here and then out here again, and now our diameter is changed from just this to all of this. So we can have the students calculate that too if they like. Yeah. So do you have any questions about this code or anything so far?
Nope, not at the moment.
Okay, great.
Let me do a triangle real quick.
Okay. Freak
out the cat again. But now the other one, the one that's usually more scared, she's sitting behind me on the sofa and is ignoring the whole thing. So that kind of surprises me. She's usually the one that's hiding under the bed by now. Yeah, there he goes again. Oh, nice. That's interesting because it made the triangle, but it was making it again.
So it went through it twice?
Yeah, well, I was about to do it again. What do you call it? Aborted it. So I was trying to see because it repeats 3 times because you're doing the 3 sides.
Yeah, but remember it always faces, it makes that last turn before landing.
Right, but like I said, it went through and did it again.
Oh, strange.
So, yeah, I'll have to think about that.
Yeah, if you want to share your, oh no, it's a different screen. Yeah, it's hard for me to troubleshoot without seeing the screen itself. Login is what you were asking about. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So, right now I'm not logged in, right? So let's say, so logging in is simple. Is simple enough, right? Like we click login and then it gives us options.
But you've got to do it every single time. I think is the annoyance.
You have to do it every time I think it's like log in to Drone blocks.
Right.
So if I were to log in right now, it's going to reload, or it's going to ask for my stuff.
I just love the fiery inferno.
Yeah. So it's actually Firebase is the application that it's using as the where it stores our information. Like
okay.
And that's its own database. So I have a lot of files up there before I started using this, and now it's quite full as well. But it's unlimited storage, which is nice. So then we come up with all these options, and if we click My Missions, we can see our previous missions. Yes. So if we are connected to the drone, which I can't shut down my internet right now because it'll lose the whole thing, right?
Right.
But let's say I'm connected to the drone, not connected to the internet. Since we're grabbing the information from a database, you see the way that it loads with nothing and then it populates? If we're connected to the drone, we actually won't be able to see our missions.
Right.
We have to actively disconnect and reconnect back to the drone to be able to see everything and do what we like with it, right?
Yeah.
So now let's say we want to share a mission, right? This is, where's the one we just did? Telepolygon mission, right? So if I come here and I grab this link, I can go to the internet and plug it in, and it's going to do a rendering of drone blocks. The thing to note is, if we press, well, let me load this one. To note is that we're missing this black bar up here, right? So
Right.
in the face, there is no are we connected or not. That's because you can't actually connect to a drone from like the full-blown Chrome interface.
But this could be a way they could so-called turn in
Yes.
their code or whatever.
Yeah. I've never thought about it like that, but yes. The way I think about it is that we can share and download each other's code.
Yep.
So now person B receives the code, right? They log in on the browser. And it's going to reload again. And now from here, I can say save mission as, and then it's like whatever you'd like to call it, downloaded code.
Cool. So when a kid finds something that's really cool and other kids want to say, oh, can I run that too? This would be a great way for them to share.
And then the final thing they have to do is now go into drone blocks and make sure we're connected to the internet. And if I go to my missions, it will have that new file right at the top. So it is multi-steps, but it has serves its purpose and it's pretty quick. So, but as you said, turning in your work it's a good way of doing that too. So let's go to the PowerPoint. This isn't the PowerPoint. There you go. The next piece that we go for is a real world, is what we call it, situation. So something that drones are used for nowadays is looking at radio towers for like telephone companies and stuff like that. So a drone, so if we sort of go through the history of how it used to be, is either a company would be proactive and looking for issues, or reactive. When something breaks, they'll try and figure out what's wrong and go out to the field and see which tower has issues. Let's say we're being proactive, right? So every day, an individual would have to climb a tower and check all its parts, see if anything is fraying, see if there's any rust, anything like that, and then they'll look to replace the parts that need maintenance. That was considered one of the most dangerous jobs. It was up there with logging. It was climbing radio towers. And people still do it, but it's been, now we can fly a drone up to the radio tower and take a look at all the bits that we would like to. And then if we need to fix something, we can either have someone climb or figure out a solution.
Right.
But what we could do instead of flying the drone ourselves is you can write some code that, based on the diameter of the radio tower, we can put a drone down in front of it and it'll take off and it'll go around the radio tower taking footage, and we can either watch it live and look for those errors, or we can watch it after the fact. And a third solution is to do some machine learning, in which a computer will be able to understand what rust looks like or what any issue that a radio tower might have looks like, and it'll sort of single out like those frames, and then a human will look at it and see if that's actually a real thing going on, and then dispatch the person to go and fix it. The point is, the final goal in the original situation was to check and fix radio towers that have issues. Nowadays, we actually have two people doing this. So you have the person who can like code the drone, or a whole fleet of drones, and then also have the person who goes out to the field and fixes them. It's just the efficiency of the whole situation is much quicker. There's more safety. And in general, the company is going to be saving money because they don't have to spend excess time doing stuff. So what we have the students do is code their version of what that looks like. And this is just a complicated way of doing it. And the reason I chose a complicated way of doing it is because I wanted to create efficient code that would complete the task pretty quickly. But if someone wanted, they could have the drone fly around the radio tower and not do a circle, but maybe like if you treat these as straight lines, I think this would be like a decagon or something like that, depending on what you have. Point is, a student can code a solution however the way they like it, and then, you know, this is the one that I think is a really strong solution, in which we're using trigonometry, and that's how it's calculating the curve. So it's actually curving between the 2 points, and then it's rotating in, and then the hover is instead of a photo, so it's like simulating taking a photo. Whoops. And then it yaws left again, because that sets it up for the next point. So instead of flying around, let's say the tower is here, right? Instead of flying around the edge and like at point A, we look in, turn back out, and then go to the next point, look in, turn back out. Where here, we look in, and then we fly to the next point sideways, and then we adjust, and then we fly to the next point sideways, and then we adjust, making sure that we're looking towards the center each time. So you can, what would you like to do? Would you, since we have, we started at 12:30, we have about an hour left. The Anaconda stuff can take.
Oh, great. The download failed. I should have looked earlier.
Was that because of the internet?
Oh, I bet you. It's going a little quicker now, though.
I can still walk you through the Python. Well, yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens when we get there. So, okay. Let's do this. We're going to. So the second piece that we do is teaching what an actual sine wave looks like. I've actually switched these more recently. It depends on the scenario. So our final piece that whenever we're teaching a course to students, is we set up noodles, and we have the students try and fly the drones, code the drones to fly through the noodles. And I had a student recently who just, he managed to get his drone. Usually students don't get it perfectly. This guy got it just right. So he flew through the noodles, and he managed to get the drone to fly out, turn around, and then fly back through. So he just threw a loop on his code, and however many times he wanted the drone to do it, it reached like at least 3 iterations, like going back and forth through the noodles.
So how do you set the noodles to? Because I'm trying to picture like vertical or
vertical. So pool noodles. We just tape down. So we used to do one noodle, but it's very difficult. It leaves like a 1-inch window for the drone to get through, because the drones can't fly within 10 inches of something. So like, let me change my camera to the other one. So let's say the drone takes up off the ground. If we tell it, it'll fly up to somewhere around here. This is about 30 inches. I know it's pretty hard to tell in the video. If we tell it to fly down, it won't get any closer to the ground than 10 inches, which is about
right.
Which means that if our pool noodle comes up and over, and the pool noodle only goes up 20 inches, that means we've got, about a foot of wiggle room, which is pretty difficult for the students.
You've got like a croquet hoop type of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I see that now.
What we recommend is taking 2 pool noodles, taping them together in the middle, and then taping them in one big arc.
Okay.
And they stay up pretty well. We, if you're flying on the floor, we just wipe down like the floor right where we're going to tape it first. Yeah, so the students really enjoy that as well. And it teaches why the sine wave equation is good, because now the drone, or one of the reasons the sine wave equation is good, is because the drone, when it does an iteration, is going to go from here to here, and then it's going to stabilize here to here, and then it's going to stabilize. If it were to do, I don't know if you can tell, but there are little blue lines in here. If it were to do a square version of this, it would fly left, stabilize, forward, stabilize, right, stabilize, forward, stabilize, left, stabilize. So it's back to that original efficiency situation, where we can teach the students that, efficient code is usually better code.
So this is the sideways path. You'd have it travel that sine
Yes.
Sine
So this one's not, so this is the right solution. But if we look over here, this is not talking about what we're actually doing over here. This is just a general sine wave that,
right, right.
that we put together in a different exercise. Oh, sorry. So this does associate with this. It does not loop with the associate with the loops, because Z is up and down. So you'd want like Y changing. So let me explain first the what we call the right-hand rule. It dictates why the drone flies in the direction it does when we change different aspects of the curve piece. So let me back up a little bit so you can see a little better. So if we stick our index, middle finger, and thumb out on our right hand, it creates this shape, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So what we're going to do is we're going to call them Y, X, and Z. So from the bottom, Y, X, and Z. The direction that your fingers point in is positive, okay? So we're pointing at the first one, it's Y, left. So to the left is Y positive. To the right is Y negative. Same thing with the X. So we're pointing forwards. Forwards is X positive, and backwards is Z negative, is X negative, sorry. Forwards, X positive, backwards, X negative. Same thing with your thumb. The way it's pointing is positive, so Z positive, and then down is Z negative.
Okay.
What a lot of people think is why isn't Y forwards positive, sorry, why isn't Y positive like the forward direction for the drone, and then X positive to the right? The reason is because of the right-hand rule. If we, like, this is the way that the planes interact with each other. It's just the way that people have been discussing them for years at this point.
Okay.
So there is no way of getting, so our middle finger is the Y. So let's make Y forwards, right, for the drone. That now means that, okay, hold on. So if we go Y positive, so it's I'm having a bit of a brain fart here, but the whole point is that this is the way that they can like learn that their drone is oriented. X is forwards, and then Y is left, and Y negative is right, and then Z is up and down. So now if we look at the curve piece, we've got 3 points. So we've got the X, Y, and Z. Sorry, we've got 2 points, but they're comprised of 3 pieces, the X, the Y, and the Z. So our first point is our midpoint, and our second point is our end point. So let's say the drone is over, so the way I like to imagine it is that we've got an imaginary starting point of 0, 0, 0. We then have our midpoint that we can choose and our endpoint that we can choose. All we have to keep in mind when creating this is the drone would like to fly a regular curve. So if we want the drone to start here and end here, we can't make it curve out and then back down. It has to be somehow midpointing in the middle, whether that's like up here and then down, or all the way out and then down, or just a regular curve in the middle. And that can go for forwards, backwards, up, down, left, right. But the curve piece itself is worth teaching the students. I usually spend about a full 40 minutes just teaching the curve piece itself.
Okay.
And plotting points and having the students see if they understand it, like conceptualize it and see if they can get it to work. The drone's direction, I haven't mentioned this yet, but its own direction is in forwards is its direction in forwards where the camera is. Like if I'm facing to the right, the drone's forwards is still forwards.
Right, right.
And this is important to keep in mind for this piece because it resets its like own orientation every time it finishes. So if it flies from here to here, its new 0, 0, 0 for the next piece, start is here. It doesn't remember where it started from. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so this one right here, since we're going up in the Z and forwards in the X, is going to be a positive change. So a positive change in the X since we're going forwards, and a positive change in the Z since we're going up. And then ignore the middle point again, and we're looking start to finish. We're looking positive change in the X and no change in the Z. So that would look exactly like what we have here. It would just be like positive number, 0, positive number, and then a number that is greater than this number, and then 0, 0. So yeah, we can put together this code, and then we'll move on to, depending on how quickly you do it, we'll either assemble the next one or the previous one, or we'll move on to the Python. Also depending on whether it loads.
Yeah, this one I find curious. So.
Sure.
All right. Let me save the old one.
And as I mentioned, we're not teaching the theory of trigonometry here. We're teaching the application of trigonometry, which is entirely different for most individuals, but specifically students, because they apply, like, kids throw a ball like very frequently, right? But they don't know parabolic, like, mathematics to be able to throw a ball. And this
Right.
is a similar situation. They don't need to know the ins and outs of the sine wave to be able to use it. They just need to know what the output is.
Okay. How about and then the variables. So what are some other times when you find either the curve or the sine wave, cosine wave being useful for?
So one of my students, let me see if I can pull up the code. So as I mentioned, the one student did like flying a shape. Oh, it's not working. He sent it to me. I asked him to send it to me. But so the trigonometry stuff, when flying, in order to fly a shape using the loop function, but where the drone is always facing the same direction, the student used trigonometry for that. The curve, for me, is about efficiency, right? So instead of having the drone like come out and do the square, and I guess that's the same situation. In the previous one, instead of flying a shape, we can curve between each point. Honestly, it's sort of as imaginative as you would like to get. I'm not really thinking of anything else right now.
Okay, that's fine. I just was wondering in terms of where it'll pop up again or when it might pop up again. Amplitude. I like the duplicate feature.
Yeah. And like the hotkeys like Control-C, Control-V work as well.
Oh, sweet. Loop count, go. Distance.
So where are you? I don't even know what state you're in.
Pardon? Oh, Ohio.
Ohio, okay.
Ohio,
cool.
yeah.
And what do you teach usually?
Chemistry and physics.
Okay.
And for the past several years, I've taught a course called Advanced Problems in Science. And the original plan of that course, it was actually a course that my dad had created when he was teaching where I'm at now. and but he originally envisioned it for the upper level science kids that really like science but were higher level thinkers. And as years have moved on, that has turned into more and more of, hey, these kids really can't grasp chemistry, so let's give them something that's science and hands-on. And so a few years ago, I was like, oh, I really need something for the kids like so-and-so that and so I said, well, let me write a grant, see if I can get some Lego Mindstorms. And I did. And that's kind of gotten me more into the programming thing. The treasurer last year sent me an email that she'd been sent about steam drones, and said, hey, this looks like, interest. And I was like, oh, it does. So I wrote another grant. My sister would hit me at this point. My sister's a grants administrator. She said, you don't write a grant. You write a grant proposal. They award you the grant. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
So.
So the physics and chemistry, you should, do you use technology at all, or you stick mostly in the classroom, that sort of thing?
I try to use as much tech as I can.
There's Minecraft EDU.
Pardon?
Have you heard of Minecraft EDU?
No.
So Minecraft inherently has physics built into it, and some of the more recent stuff has redstone is what they call it, which is pretty much electricity. And it has the same things, like it dissipates energy over time. It needs conductors, transistors, that sort of thing. And then in the Minecraft EDU, they've added in both chemistry and coding into Minecraft.
Oh, cool.
And you may have access to it just for free. I'm so bad with the title, I think it's Title A or something like that. And most schools have access to it. They just don't know. But you can, you can code. You can use chemistry to make a pig fly, which is something they're not allowed to do in normal Minecraft. But you create the elements, and then using the elements, you can create compounds, specifically latex, and then you use dye in that latex to create a balloon, and you put helium in it, and then you tie it off to a pig, and the pig will fly off. So the kids love it, and it sounds like it would be right up your chemistry and physics, right?
So just to double check, X1, X2, and Z1 are variables I create first?
Yes.
Okay. Just making sure.
Yeah. So recently I was running a workshop where we were coding so in this version you get an agent is what it's called. It's a little guy that helps you code things, or it does execute some of your code for you if you write him to do that. So I was having the students code the guy to build a building or a lab, and in that lab you would then walk in and set down your workbenches and create your balloon, and then go outside and tie your pigs to stakes, so you have things outside.
I have never been successful at Minecraft. I've played around a little bit with it. There's a Python version of Minecraft. It's on the Raspberry Pi I was playing with, and it's at this point I don't know what I'm doing.
Had you played games at all? Is the navigation difficult for you?
I played some games, yeah. I was addicted to World of Warcraft for far too long.
Oh, so yeah, moving around will be no problem for you, right? WASD?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so first of all, we have the math problem. I'm in the loop.
Great. And when I'm teaching the students, sometimes we have a student or a group of students who are very comfortable pushing themselves. So we can tell them what we want to do, and then they can use the information they know about drone blocks to put it together. I enjoy that. but that brings me to so back in our like original, the first one we did where we were creating a polygon equation, all the students would forget this line, which is okay, we've calculated the interior angle. Now we're going to use we need the exterior. So that's why I love telling them what they're going to need, but unless, until they have that in front of them, they often like they forget about it. And then, they're always like kicking themselves when they realize that's the piece that they left out. But they really enjoy putting it together and creating something that's tangible, right? With something physical flying around in the room.
Oh, okay. So looking at the Z1 line, it's got amplitude times. So I'm guessing I put another math thing in that's the sine. I see. Times the sine in degrees. And it uses angle. Degrees, not radians.
Yes, it's degrees.
That's nice. Okay, and now we have a navigation curve. So X1 is your starting position. X, Y, and Z1 are all your starting positions. X, Y, and Z.
Nope.
Are your final, or?
So remember, we've got 3 imaginary points over here, and those are our starting positions. We got 0, 0, 0. I usually like to use a whiteboard, but it's harder with the virtual. So imagine, let's go to a new drone blocks. So if I navigation and curve, and now let's see like navigation. So let's just imagine this is, just because I don't have anywhere else to write right now.
Right.
So this is X0, Y0, and Z0, right? So these values are always, no matter what we want, they're always set to 0. That's our starting point. Our midpoint is these 3 together. And
the curve X1, Y1, Z1.
Yep, and our final point is these 3 together.
Okay, the 2s. Okay, gotcha.
Cool.
Yeah. X2 is my final position, and 0. No, don't move.
So Control Z works as well, like to undo.
Good. I do that a lot. All right, logic.
Yes. So speaking to the logic, the if and else statements, they're hard to teach with the drones because, like when building a website, right? The if statements are often like on hover, or if this person is logged in, or if we have cookies about like this user visiting this website before, do A, and else do B, right? So for example, we go to Facebook, it checks its cookies to see if we have any login information or login history. If yes, we go and we load all their data that creates your customized newsfeed, your customized profile, and all that. Else, we don't have any login information, and you immediately get put to that login page. So that's very reactive, like based on the situation. But the drones can't like bump into a wall and say like, if bump, turn around, else keep going forwards. It doesn't have that it doesn't have that reaction in it. So all of the if-else statements are always mathematical with the drones.
Okay.
So one of the things I like to do is set limits. So this one is saying if it's even, we fly up. If it's odd, well, if it's even, set loop count to 1, else change loop count by 1. And then we're setting the degrees, right? So it's going to say if in one situation we're going up, else we're going to go down. One thing I like to do is set like limits. So for example, we're using these numbers to eventually end up with like an X1 and a Z1. If these numbers are too small, the drone won't do anything. So what we can say is we can put like an if statement up here and say if like the what's the final number that we have? So X1 is set to distance. So if distance is like less than, I think 25 is like the good number to go with, then like just do a flip and land or something like that. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So speaking about distances, you know, if it's tight in your house, the drone's going to be flying quite a distance forwards, and it's you know, if you take it off the ground, it's going to fly up 20 inches, and then it's also going to go up again another
Right.
amplitude, so another 36 inches.
So this might be one for the gymnasium when I get to the school.
Yeah, you could try changing amplitude to 25, but if it doesn't fly at all, you know, you might have to change it to 36. Because there is the amplitude times sine degrees. No, that should be fine because that's 1 or -1. So I would try setting amplitude to 25 and it should be okay.
25. All right. Period 96 plus 4. Loop count 4 times. All right, save this puppy. Ah! Log me out.
Did you lose your code?
Hopefully not. Nope, it's still there. Okay. All right, save mission. So this is flying a sine wave. So the drone blocks curriculum that I have, I like I said, I haven't been in the second part, so I don't know what all's there. But do you know if this is part of the standard drone blocks curriculum, or if this is in addition?
This code is actually in it. I'm not sure. Well, if you purchase the 10 drone package, you probably have the unlimited teacher package for it as well.
Very possible.
So you will get the polygon, the real world scenario, and the sine wave as well.
Cool.
My sine wave actually, I remember, is different from what you have. And that's just because of preference, really. So if I take a look at it, what? I logged in this minutes ago.
I know. Like, Google, seriously.
Why is it asking if I have an iPhone 5? That's so old. Like, I mean, okay, here we go.
Honestly, I'm not hacking you or anything weird like that, okay? I do not have the skills.
I think I have the know-how that I would recognize it, I would hope.
Good.
So we're looking at sine wave. So if we put them side by side, there's a few subtle differences.
Oh yeah, you don't have the.
I don't have the if loop.
The logic, yeah.
Because the way that a sine, and I think that this one, I think that it detracts from the learning the way that a sine wave works, right? So knowing that we can just keep adding 180 to the sine wave, and it's just going to change the output to -1 and +1, right? Is more impactful than saying, in this situation, you have the option of saying, you have the option of executing this and then just switching out like this part with loop count, right? So if we say set loop count to 1 and then instead set loop count to -1, that would be the same thing as adding the 180. Which, you know, if a student came up with that, it shows that they have an understanding of how sine works. So I would, you know, I'd be happy with it anyway, I guess. But yeah, I also moved setting my variables outside of the loop because we don't need to be setting distance.
Yeah, that's
when it's a set number each time.
Unless you're doing math in the loop.
Exactly, then it doesn't need to be in there. Either of them work though, so you can launch what you have.
So, well, we can certainly see if it. I like the abort button.
Yeah.
Okay. I hope that doesn't affect my install here. Shouldn't. It's in the extract stage of the install. Okay. There we go. Oh, lady legs. We'll see how far it'll go here before it gets in the way of furniture. Interesting. Didn't do at all what I expected it to do.
What did it do?
It went up, did the hover bit, then it just kind of went up, paused, and then went back down again.
So after flying up, it hovered, and then it just flew up again, and then.
Yeah, it just kind of. It looked like it might have been going forward while it was moving up. But
okay. Did you click abort or did it end itself?
It ended itself.
Huh. So do you think there's room to change the 25 back to 36?
Yeah, let's try that.
Because we might be using amplitude down here. Oh no, this is fine again from what I think. But yeah, it comes back to the math, using math, and then we don't know what our numbers are because they're dynamic, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see it at 36.
Okay, so here's the hover stage. It's going up, but it's going up vertical. Not going forward.
No luck?
Interesting. This is kind of. Let's see if I can. See if I can get the camera. Like, yeah, let's see here.
So the bit that I'm
there it is.
okay.
So there's your 5-second hover.
No, so that's stabilization. That's fly up, right? And then it's going to hover for 5 seconds.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and.
Good. Do something. So what it looks like to me is we're gonna. So it's work. Is it flashing red when it goes down?
Pardon?
Is it flashing red? Is it lands?
I don't know that space. No, it's flashing red now.
Okay. So I think there must be an issue in the code because it is flying up and it is hovering for 5 seconds, right? But the drone will then look at everything else by itself and say like, okay, we're having an issue here.
Okay.
So I don't know if you want to try and edit it or maybe go for mine because it's a little simpler. Or what I can do, here, this is what we can do. I'm going to fly my drone, double check my code works, and then I'll send you my code knowing that, you know, it should work.
You like these little revolving cameras. I'm saying, hi!
Hi, nice to see you.
You can tell that chimes have changed since we first got this style of netbook, because when they first got them, oh my God, the video camera was the coolest thing. And now with what they can do on their own cameras, who needs a video camera on a laptop or on a computer? What do you even need a computer for? I got my phone. It can do all this stuff.
Yeah.
I had one physics student do his final report completely on his cell phone. Did all his measurements on it, did the whole thing, typed it up on his cell phone, emailed it to me. I said, hey, whatever. It read fine.
At some point, he'll realize he needs a computer, but if he could do it on his phone, he can do it on his phone, I guess, you know?
He's the one, he's one of the music students who's also a really good physics student, but he's the one that when we were trying to do constant motion buggies, figured out if we use a metronome program, we'd know exactly when to make the mark for, you know, how far they've gone. And so soon everybody in class had downloaded some kind of metronome software on their phone and we're doing it. I said, that's the greatest idea. So that's going to be my suggestion this year.
Okay, so we're always trying to limit that, right? Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to go to my missions. I'm going to grab this one and share it. Okay, and then I'm going to email you. Actually, I can put it in the Zoom chat. More chat, paste. There you go.
Cool beans. All right. That is a clever tool.
Being able to share the code, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And something we always talk to the students about is it's like a science experiment. If you can do it on your machine, if you can't replicate it on somebody else's machine, then it doesn't do anything at all. It doesn't help. And the same thing with a science experiment, right? It has to be repeatable.
Mm-hmm.
One of the primary reasons we do that, we name our files and our variables in the ways we do, not like a math equation where it'd be, you know, D, A, P, D, and maybe like LC, is because you need to be able to read it. The other person needs to understand what's actually going on. Yeah, and a great phrase is, I swear it worked on my machine. That's like the coding phrase.
did you say your name was?
Nick?
Nick, thanks. I'm calling it Flying a Sine Wave from Nick. So, there it is. All right. Should we give it a try? Do I have enough battery? Well, 67%. It should work at 67, shouldn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, where are you? Let's zoom. And they use my neighbor's Wi-Fi things. Adam's Love Lounge. I just called mine Tron. I go with the old school.
Yeah, the ones I lived in the city for a bit, and there was always somebody like called their Wi-Fi like FBI surveillance man.
Yeah. Come on, stupid netbook. This does mean we're going to have some fun when the kids' netbook connection is being stupid.
Mm-hmm. I have to say I've never heard of a netbook before.
Pardon?
I've never actually heard of a netbook before. This is the first I'm hearing them.
Oh, really? You never called them that?
But they're the Windows version of a Chromebook. That's what you're saying, right?
Well, no, these are just dinky, teeny tiny little laptops with Windows on them.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
You've always just called them netbooks.
Well, I hadn't heard that.
We do have more and more Chromebooks coming into the building. Come on.
As useful as Chromebooks are, having so little local storage can be problematic.
Mm-hmm.
But what's their compute power? Like, I know their storage is super low, but their RAM is what, sitting at like 4 or 8?
I don't know. I don't actually have a Chromebook, so. Now, when I took over Dad's position at Newton, I inherited his 17 computer lab. It was actually he actually had 3 rooms. He had the laboratory, the classroom, and then the computer lab, because he was one of the first, starters of this whole internet, computer boom at Newton. He and the math teacher were the two that kind of got it all going. And but so he's always had one. So when we got the new building, I kept going to the superintendent and saying, "So what I could really use is a cart full of netbooks. That would be what I'd do." And every time I'd see him, I said, "But what we could really use here is a cart full of netbooks." So sure enough, when the new building came, I got a cart full of netbooks. So I was like, "Good, I still have my computers." Hey, no internet, because it's being. So yes, the Anaconda has downloaded, but this particular netbook is being stupid. So I'm going to turn off the Tello, and reboot the machine. Well, that's actually not a good idea. I'm not going to reboot the machine. Because I'm not on the school network, I can't log into my my accounts.
So what you can do is, can you turn off your Wi-Fi fully and then turn it back on?
Yeah, I have, but it still shows it as being on.
Yeah.
So let's see. Where's the physical button?
You mentioned that you were flying the drone around with the app before.
Yes. That's true. I could use that.
As fun as no, but the app can't run code. There is a DroneBlocks app, and if you logged in, you might be able to load my code. That could work.
Yeah.
But they definitely keep the Chrome app like the most updated. But what I wanted to say is, for updates and stuff like that, the Tello app's great. but I really make sure that I never show my students that you can fly the drones around with a remote.
Right.
Because it gets very chaotic very quickly.
I thought of that myself when working with it. So, okay. Yeah, the trouble is now I'm not connected to the internet, and new connection settings. There it is. Nope, we don't want to forget that. Sorry about that.
No, it's fine. I just don't want to. I want to make sure to be able to spend the time on the Python stuff as well.
Yeah, I tell you what. Let me get my actual laptop, and if nothing else, that should go a little faster.
Sure.
It's like here, I finally have this thing ready. The stuff is installed, and then the internet decided, or the computer decided it couldn't see the network. Oh.
But is Anaconda on the one that's not seeing the internet?
Yeah, the Anaconda's on the one that's not working.
No. Okay.
Always and ever. I'll keep checking on it. But.
Okay, so what I would like to talk about is the Tello app and updating the drone. So not updating, but calibrating the IMU and stuff like that.
Oh, excellent! Yes.
So if we open up the app, the Tello app, we come to this interface, and we're just going to click the close for now. And then we see the settings wheel up here. So in the same place that so actually I have a question. What type of phone are you using?
Samsung Galaxy S7, Android, whatever.
And when you launched the Tello application and connected to a drone and clicked activate and then update, did it say you need to download the firmware first before updating the drone?
Only the first time.
Okay, great. So you might have to do that every now and then because the firmware updates and your phone will detect that and say, hey, we should download a new update. Or you can force it to do so we're clicking the settings. We're clicking the settings wheel up here. And then we're clicking more. And then we're clicking the dots, the ellipses.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And then we've got, this is pretty much all the important stuff.
Okay.
So we've got firmware version, and we can update it. I think mine's saying zeros right now, although that's inaccurate.
Yeah, because it's not connected.
No. So firmware version, when the drone's not connected, it should say the version that your phone has downloaded.
Oh, okay.
So the reason that I don't know, or you could be right, but it doesn't just say 0. We can click update, and for me it's verifying my firmware. Oh, you know what?
Yeah, it's only going to do it if the thing's hooked to it.
Well, I'm not connected to the internet, but my phone thinks I am, which is causing issues. Okay, so let's click update again. There you go.
Hey, Anaconda Cloud.
Oh, awesome. So
believe it or not, Windows diagnosis actually did something right for once. Okay, you were showing me.
So once we do this, we've actually downloaded the firmware to our phone, right? And then we connect to the drone through the, as you've done through the settings on your phone, and then you would click this button and it would send off the information to the drone.
Yes.
Okay, so we close that. The next thing we have is center of gravity calibration, which is grayed out. If we connect to the drone, so if a drone is flying a little wonky or having some issues, these are the steps that we take first before calling up, like, what do they call it? The makers of Tello, and saying like, hey, I've got a faulty drone, can I get a new one, or can you help me somehow, right? So to do the second one, we connect to the drone, launch it, and click calibrate. And that'll help with its stabilization. And then on the top one, we've got the IMU status. If we click calibrate right now, it's got a picture of the drone without any blades on, without any bumpers, anything like that. We would take off all that stuff for our drone, and then we start running through the steps. It's going to have you put the drone flat down. It's going to have you put the drone flat down, on its side, on its other side, on its back, on its front, upside down. And when it's on its side, it'll be a little crooked just because of the way that everything lines up here. And that's like, that's okay. That's the way it expects to be when it's being calibrated.
Okay. So you actually rest it on the table or whatever.
Exactly. Balance it on its side. Yeah, on a flat surface. That's the general troubleshooting. I don't know if I have. So with every drone, 1 second. With every drone, you get a little packet like this, and it comes with this metal guy. If you line, I'll take it out. If we need to take off the blades, put the drone flat on the table, and then we hook this underneath the blade, and then I line it up directly with the bar right here. And now if I just push, it'll take the blade right off while it's on a flat surface, right? And it's amazingly easy how easy it is like this, instead of, you know, like just trying to pull it off sort of at a random angle. So if you line it up with the drone, it actually comes off really easily. As far as putting blades on, they're pretty easy to put on, but I wouldn't have students do it, because if you damage a motor, that's a much more serious issue than a broken blade. And the blades come off so infrequently that you're not going to lose from teaching time by putting on a blade. So I just lay the drone flat and then just push the blade straight down onto the thing that sticks up. And the reason I don't have students do it is just because if they bent, you know, if they bent the motor, it's going to cause issues, and I'd rather be the one responsible for that instead of a student.
I understand that 100%. Yeah.
So one last try on the curve, or shall we move forwards?
Let's move forward. Let's go. I'm in the process of signing up for Anaconda Cloud.
Okay.
That's what she thinks. Oh, there it is. Okay. Hidden button.
So as I'm teaching this, just know that there is not a single aspect of what we're going to copy and paste in that the students will not have learned if you were to follow like the Drone Blocks EDU content. But for today, we're going to copy and paste in a large file that's going to enable us to run some code on the drone. And you might have a lot of questions and I can address them, but pretty much the understanding is that the students actually will know all of the steps and all of the parts of what's going on in this file. So tell me when you're ready.
Guess I'm ready.
Okay, so I'm going to search Navigator, Anaconda and Navigator. It's coming up for me, so I'm going to click Open. And it's going to do a much longer startup than most files, because it's going to communicate with command prompt and set up some back-end sort of stuff as it loads. Like, I forgot what they're called. They're called it's going to set up ports and stuff for the.
Mhm. Now I understand the drone blocks. You cannot use the camera thing. Is that something that we would be able to do with the Python,
So
or is that only with the
you
a
would be
different
able
word?
to. I think the lesson regarding that is we don't have it, but it's being worked on. It's just a little more complex because DJI is the one that owns the drones, and they just didn't make it super accessible through the SDK, like right off the bat. So the guy who actually created the Drone Blocks app is working on a piece to be able to access the camera.
Cool.
Yeah. So if you, yeah, as you will, you'll see it in the curriculum. It'll probably just like get popped in one day
Okay.
once they figured it out.
All right. I have Anaconda Navigator up.
Yep.
And I see Jupyter Notebook. That was one thing you talked about, was Jupyter.
Yep. So we're going to click Launch in Jupyter Notebook. So now what this is going to do is it's going to set up a uniform coding environment for all of our students. And I can't tell if my computer's just thinking or if it's thinking. Okay, there you go. So it's going to pop us over to our default browser, which for me is Chrome, and it's going to show me what my root directory looks like. Once you see something similar to this, let me know.
Yep. And it's got like a launcher that also popped up.
So I'm not sure about the launcher.
Well, it's got like notebook console, console Python 3, notebook Python 3, other.
Similar to this or no?
Pardon?
Is it in the browser?
Yeah, it opened up Jupyter Lab browser. Is that what I'm supposed to be in?
I don't believe so. Oh no, the one to the right of that.
Okay.
We've got Jupyter Notebook.
Okay, my bad. My bad.
This one.
There we go. It's a coming. There we go. Yes, I have exactly what you saw.
Okay, great. So what we're going to do is go to the desktop because this is not good practice as a developer, but I think from the educational standpoint, it's good for the students to be able to like go to their background and see that they're creating a file when they do this. So I clicked on, so from here, we clicked on desktop.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're going to click new in the top right, and it should say Python 3 for you.
Okay, new. Python 3, okay.
Yep. So I'm gonna click on that, and it's gonna give us a Python like application interface. So the first thing we do when coding is rename our files. So I'm gonna call it Drone Workshop.
Okay, and that under file?
Just click Untitled right here.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
It gives us the option. And then we'll call it 7.
Now, we went to the desktop. Could we go to like our shared drive? Would that show up as well? Like they all have a network drive, H, you know, like you have C colon, they have H colon. Would that be accessible?
Potentially. These files are so small that I don't think it would cause an issue. But I would imagine so. I just haven't run this on a Chromebook, so I'm not sure. Look, I have my OneDrive showing up. So yeah, I believe so.
Cool beans. Yeah, because I'm not on the school network, so I can't see it here. But I was just thinking, well, that's where we have kids usually save stuff, and that way they're used to saving things to the H drive. And
Exactly, yeah, which is fine. So now we've done all this. We're going to come over here, and what we're going to look to do is some stuff that is on GitHub. Have you ever heard of GitHub before?
I have heard of GitHub. I have downloaded software from there before.
Great.
But only for me at home.
So I'm sending you a link in the chat again, and you can click on that, and it's going to take us to the same place, which is Dennis Baldwin's Drone Blocks code.
Okay. Now, my thinking is this may be something I'll have to do because I don't know if GitHub would be accessible from school.
So,
but I can put it if it's just software that needs to be downloaded. I can put it on my classroom.
The full website or the logged in version of it? Because I think you can access. Let me open a private browser. Yeah, I can still see his code even if I'm not logged in. Is it the actual website that would be blocked, or?
Yeah,
like,
well, I don't know, but we have a pretty big blacklist of websites kids can't go to.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah.
But if all else fails, if it's something I need to download from here, I could probably download it, throw it up on Google Classroom, and the kids can access it.
Yep. So do you see this?
Yep.
Okay, so we're going to click on lesson 6.
Lesson 6, keyboard commands.
Yep. And then we're going to click on telokeyboardcommands.py.
Okay.
And then we're going to click raw on the right side, right over here. That brings our website into just a raw version of the code.
Okay.
And we can press Control-A, Control-C. To
Excellent.
copy. Now we head back over to our Drone Workshop tab.
Mm-hmm.
We click in this text box,
mm-hmm.
and we do Control-V to paste. Now something we're going to do right off the bat is we're going to change this line right here, where it says local address equals parentheses quote common 9,000. We're going to change it down to 3,000. The reason for that is because computers have a range of addresses or ports that they have access to.
Mm-hmm.
What I've been finding is that a lot of computers don't have access to port 9,000, so 3,000 usually works. Once we've done that, we are going to turn on our drone. And while the drone's turning on, I would like to talk about what the code does. So first, it's going to import sockets, threading, time, and system. So these are just things, these are files that are going to help the drone understand what we're saying later on in the code. We're setting the telo address so we can communicate with it, the local address of the computer so that it has a place to send and receive the commands. A socket is a live communication between the drone and the computer. So old communication was like, I send, you receive. Once you've received, send back. I get that. Now I can send you something else. Nowadays, we have live connections that are called sockets, and it's just a pipeline of information, stuff going back and forth. And when the computer or the drone sees something it wants or needs to react to, it reacts to it. Mm-hmm. So what we actually do is we push the drone into the direction of like incoming and outgoing. So we don't want that live connection because what we're going to be doing is sending a command, and when the command goes out, the drone's going to do it, stabilize, and then it's going to send OK back. We want to move the drone or the communication from asynchronous code into synchronous. So one thing happens, then another is what synchronous is. Whereas asynchronous is, hey, I can do this, I'm going to do it now. I can also do this, I'll do this now. So that's sort of like the high level view of what's going on. And then this is our actual code, including error messages as to allowing the drone and the computer to communicate with each other. And some of the stuff is like, for example, we've got like 3 seconds to type something in. If not, we're going to get like the quit thing. Or this is actually, if quit is typed, then we're going to quit. Again, I'm not going to go all the way into this, but we're going to be communicating with the drone. So the first thing we need to do is connect to the drone before running the code. So I'm clicking connect.
Okay.
Yep. And now we click anywhere in here. You really want to see the, I don't know what it's called, the thing flashing. Because if we clicked outside of this box, it's not gonna run.
Okay.
So now there are a bunch of different buttons here, and run does function. But if we press this one, it works for all scenarios. So I just say always click this one. It's gonna say
restart the kernel and rerun that one.
Yep, and then restart and run all cells. So I just want to double check. It's this one that you're going. This one. Restart the kernel and rerun. Yep. Restart and run.
Uh-oh. Windows Firewall has blocked some features of this app. This is something I cannot get around. Shoot.
Okay.
That'll be something I'll have to talk with my tech guy about.
Yeah. So for a computer where you're not getting blocked, we get this command. We get this coming up. It's a text box. And what we can say is command to get the communication going between the computer and the drone. And we receive back OK. Whenever we're doing anything, we want to make sure that we're receiving OK back. So I'm going to ask my drone, what's your battery at? And syntax is important here because I'm accessing the SDK. So if we come over here, I've got the software development kit. Also, if we go back to the drone blocks, sorry, not drone blocks, GitHub, at the bottom of his file, we've got the SDK written here as well. Where's my, sorry, there's like the zoom pop-up at the top is in the way. Okay, there you go. Okay, so now it's telling me the battery. So now I can switch over the camera. And if I say take off, it's going to take off, and then it's going to say OK. And then I can say forward 30, back 30. So it's in centimeters. I can say flip up. I'm at 30%, so I don't know if it'll work.
Right.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah. Error.
There you go. Unknown command, right? So flip F was correct. We waited a couple more seconds, and the drone should land. Or I'm just going to type land. And it's going to land, and then it's going to say OK. So the reason we got the error here, well, you see we're at 28%, and then we're trying to do a flip. It didn't want to do it. So this is just one of the lessons that you end up teaching the students within the Python environment. But everything is addressed if we go through edu.droneblocks.
Cool.
I guess the next piece is to sort of round that out for you. So I'll log in. So you've worked through this stuff. It's sort of just information on the drone, the coding, and drones themselves in the current environment, the workplace environment. Introduction, so you've got if statements, variables, hexagon, all the sort of basics, and land in your hand. The way I would treat this stuff going forwards is as your like review before you teach a lesson. So you'll want to land in your hand and put it right after hello Tello, so that they're all the students are able to let it land in their hand. Nested loops. We didn't include this. It's not included in my code for going around a point, but that's definitely a situation where we would be nesting. We'd go around, go up, and then go around again. A nested loop is a loop within a loop. Polygon equation with variables. So we did that. 3D coordinates, the right-hand rule. It's a great place to review if you're ever feeling confused about the XYZ coordinate plane, which, I mean, I don't know about you, but I have to review every now and then.
Yeah. And then I have so many right-hand rules for physics that
I never learned any of those, I guess. And then flying points in a line using slope. It's the application of the 3D of the right-hand rule. Arc pattern, good practice the arc. Loop pattern, now we're going to do it on the vertical plane. Sine wave and orbiting around a center point. As far as allocating yourself time, most of them are 5 minutes, except for the more complicated ones that are around 10.
Yeah.
And then we've got Python with Tello. This is what we were just working through. So you're going to set up your programming environment, which is downloading Anaconda and whatnot. An overview of UDP, sending and receiving UDP. So this talks about the asynchronous versus synchronous code. Box mission. So the first one we did with the drag and drop, we're going to do again with our, we're going to do again while coding with Python. We got spin about, which is just like the drone spins around and then it comes down and comes back up. And then we've got our keyboard commands, which I think is sort of the best one to show in a workshop like today, because it shows us something that we're not able to do through the drag and drop. Like we do that live interaction with the drone. Unit conversions. So this is just building some math into our basic Python code, which is a good introduction to what real world code can look like. I mean, all of this is real world code, but the unit conversion is something that is definitely used very often. The thing that comes to mind for me, I did web design, so is like making sure that your application fits the screen, and that's unit conversion itself. And retry command. So if you're going to be communicating with a drone, the retry command allows it to understand, hey, we received an error. Let's try and go back and retry what we were supposed to do. And then there's a little bit with expanding towards Python Raspberry Pi. Sorry, expanding towards the Raspberry Pi. And then we've got Node-RED, which, now I'm not actually sure. This is something that's been added a couple weeks ago. Something that's coming to mind now is I think you can run basic code with. So I don't want to be wrong, but what I'm thinking is you can run Node-RED on any Tello drone. It's the swarming and some of the other features that won't be interpreted properly by the drone. Okay. So I'm gonna, because I need to know this anyway, I'm gonna contact our Dave. I think you've been in contact with him.
Yeah.
And talk to him whether that's accessible right now for normal drones, or if it's well, all drones, or if it's just for Tello EDU. And then this is just expanding on the Node-RED stuff. Yeah, so that's everything I've got. I hope I didn't hold you too long.
No.
So do you have any questions?
Well, I see that it's down in the Node-RED thing. It mentions mission pads, and one of the things that came with the whole kit I bought are those spring-loaded thing. Is that what they're talking about with mission pads, or is that something completely different, or do you not know?
I don't know if anything's spring-loaded.
Well, yeah, I could show you one here in a second. Oh, you know, old lady legs.
The mission pads, are like pads that the drone will look for below it, and it'll land on them or do something when it's hovering over them.
Whoops.
It'll do something specific, like a QR code. It'll understand it's above it and execute a certain piece of code. So you can interact with the if statement a little bit better.
Turn it on and off. Try that again. Come on. There's on. These things. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. Is that spring loaded?
Yeah. It fits in a very small package, and then it pops open.
Oh, okay. I was thinking something actually like with a spring that could launch.
Right.
So yeah, those mission pads. The mission pads are a new feature as well, and the drone can hover over that and interact with it.
Oh, cool.
Using Node-RED.
Nifty.
Yeah. And then again, they close off with the Raspberry Pi stuff as well for Node-RED. So any more questions?
Not that I can think of. Now, is any of this stuff then, because I notice this is all earmarked for the teacher thing, is there any of this stuff available for the kids? Or do you just use this to teach us, and then we teach the kids however we teach the kids? Is that?
That's the angle. Yeah.
Sure, that's fine.
We also have our own curriculum that we've written that can be integrated once a week for or every day for a half year or every day for a full year, and that's its own sort of bundle and price, and it comes with more PD explaining in depth like how to teach the lessons and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So if you'd like information on that, we can send you over that a little bit of information regarding it and maybe like the pricing and stuff like that.
Okay.
So we'll follow up with that. So the two things for me, action points are: can a normal drone run Node-RED, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or do they have to be the EDU drones? And then the second thing is send over the curriculum. Is there anything else?
Not that I can think of.
Okay. Well, it's been great speaking with you, Trina, and meeting you.
Yeah.
It's been good fun.
All right. Well, thank you so much. You've done an excellent job. Oh, there I am. You've done an excellent job and answered a lot of my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. I love interacting with teachers who are like really working hard to keep the students up to date.
Like to see that.
Have a good summer.
You too.
Bye.
Okay.